Hi, it's me again. Yep, it's me. So I am really, really excited about this conversation. I keep saying that, but I really am. I'm Natalie Byrne. I work in impact strategy. My firm is called Blank Space. And the reason it's called Blank Space is because that's the space we have to get to make change. And that's the space where creativity and disruption, different kind of stakeholders come together. We think of the private sector and the nonprofit sector and the government sector coming together to make a difference. And that is what we're about to talk about. We are about to talk about collaborations that disrupt the status quo to really, really problem solve. So I'm so excited to invite my panelists up. We have Emily from Google, Mike from Farmlink, and Katy from Refed. So please get ready for an amazing conversation. Oh, gentlemen. Oh, my gosh. Also, Mike, I love the hat. You are rocking it. I am, super jealous of that look. Okay, I'll give everybody a second to fill in. So I was just chatting about, really trying to frame up that space that we need to go to collaborate. What makes for a good partnership, what doesn't, and how that really can drive both business and solutions forward. So I'm going to start by having everyone introduce themselves, tell us their organization, and really, if you could just talk about where you are in the food ecosystem so we can start to build that idea of who the players are and how you guys may be interacting.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be back here. The stage is always a very friendly place to be. My name is Emily Ma. I work for Google. It's okay if you don't know what Google is. We have a search engine, and we also provide maps and some other services. We try. So our mission at Google is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So you can insert the word food in there, and it becomes organize the world's food information and make it universally accessible and useful. And so I have the honor and pleasure of really focusing my time and energy at Google to organize our efforts in food security and reduction of food waste globally. I have also the great honor of working with both Refed and the Farmlink project, so I'll hand it off to Katy next.
Thank you. And my name is Katy Hart. I'm the operations director at Refed. I am just thrilled to be here today, and huge thanks to everyone on the Future of Food team for hosting us, and to Kroger for making this happen. At Refed, we are a national nonprofit advancing data-driven solutions to the problem of food waste here in the United States. And we fill a couple of unique roles and candidly very fun roles in the space. And the common thread between those is serving as a hub or almost a switchboard operator, if you will. And we do this in data, in capital, and in human connections. So really being someone who's able to bring data or capital or people together so that we can drive more meaningful action. And the language we use at Refed to describe this is the big tent. And what really underpins all of that is inclusion. Inclusive mindsets, both on the part of Refed as well as our partners. Over to you, Mike.
My name is Mike Meyer. I am with the Farmlink project. We are a national hunger-fighting charity. It is actually led by a group of incredibly talented, young, passionate folks that are just recently out of college. And clearly I'm the exception, and I'm probably 3 times the age of the average age of Farmlink. But they got involved right at the start of the pandemic. And I like to tell them that wasn't quite like charging hell with a bucket of water, but it wasn't that far off. But they saw the food waste at the farms, and they saw the hunger lines at the food banks, and they started connecting farms to the food banks and to the independent charities. And Farmlink is still led by that same group of talented young folks. It now includes over 500 college students in its legacy. It has rescued about 100 million pounds of produce across this nation and has fed tens of millions of people.
Oh my gosh. See, it's already so good. Think about that college student who's seeing a problem in their own backyard innovates, makes some calls, thinks about all of these different ways that they can build coalitions to really help those that are hungry. It's really inspiring, actually, just to think about the power of one individual coming together with others and building partnerships around what they're passionate about. So to get into that a little bit more, we're really looking at knowing Google as a technology company. I love how you frame that. Do we know Google? Of course we do. This is something that touches everyone's lives. I'd love if you would just speak a little bit more about what that means when you add the word food in. Google Food, what does that mean? Because if you're really building an ecosystem around all of these various things that are happening, it's almost like at your fingertips. You can, maybe solutions are emerging and you're able, to really share that with all of us. So I'd love to learn more about this.
So it's actually kind of a layered onion. So let's peel back the layers of the onion. So number one, I'm always blown away when I go to YouTube and some chicken recipe or some shorts has 40 million views. And I'm like, wow, people are coming to YouTube to just look for a chicken recipe to make use of their leftover chicken breast from the night before. And so naturally, there's a lot of information that's getting passed backwards and forwards. Same thing during the pandemic, we were one of the first to see, trending food insecurity, because people would literally go and type into the search bar, free food near me or food pantry near me, and we could see at a pretty granular level where those spikes were happening and the growth rates or the sustaining rates across the country and the world. When it comes to the work that we do at Google, it is a layered onion. So I spoke about sort of everyone, right? So we have 8 platforms that reach 1 billion people or more each: YouTube, Google Search, Maps, etc. Then there's supporting our partners. So Kroger is an incredible partner to us. We do a lot of work with them in many different ways. And so how can we step up and help Kroger's and other food companies in the world, really, really, tackle their goals, whether it's zero hunger waste, whether it's something else. So that's supporting our partners, and Refed and Farmlink Project are partners, right? And then finally, there's leading at Google, which is within Google, we're almost 25 years old as of this year. Even in day one, our founders were like, food is going to be really important to bringing our staff together. And so they invested in free lunch. And we still have that program going. It's about 250,000 meals a day in 54 countries and 170 cities. So we learn a lot when we are feeding some 170,000 people in 54 countries. And so those are 3 layers when we think about food at Google. I sort of operate in all 3 in various ways, and we have to really address food waste and food insecurity through all 3 domains. And I will say one thing. I want to sort of thank Refed and the Farmlink Project being at the table here, because Google is really good at information. So moving ones and zeros around is kind of our secret sauce. We don't know how to move things around. And so the business of moving food around, the 500 college students who are helping to organize the movement of now over 100 million pounds of food in the last 2.5 years, that is phenomenal. And whatever we can do to support activity like that with good information at the right time, the right place, we're going to step in and try to do.
But it's also so encouraging to think about you inside of this, giant think tank of an organization. I mean, we're talking about a problem that so often doesn't have a face to it, that we are talking about these numbers and we don't know where they are. And the fact that you can actually have some of that information of wow, look at this community, that all of these people are reaching out for food in this community. What's going on? So I do think that data is so important when it highlights a problem. And then, as we have 2 big solutionists up here, if I can call you that, can help and fill that. They can use that. So let's talk a little bit about data and technology, and both of you just speak to how that drives the work you're doing.
Sure, and happy to start that. For Refed, a prime example of how we're using technology and data is our Insights engine. We launched the Insights engine in 2021 with incredibly generous funding from Kroger, so thank you, Denise, if you're still in the room. And this is a suite of web tools that are publicly available. They're completely free to use, and they let stakeholders of every single type go on a journey to really understand the problem of food waste, the what, the how, the why, what types are being wasted, and then more importantly, dig into those solutions on a really nitty-gritty level to understand what challenges might I face in implementing these solutions? What financing is required? What other stakeholders do I need to work with? I know we're talking about collaboration. That really brings in that collaboration point too. What are the attendant benefits of addressing this solution? And you can even go as far as then clicking into our solution provider directory and finding folks who are providing that solution today that you can actually email or pick up the phone and call them and say, let's work together. Or how can you help my organization implement waste tracking? Or how can I work with you as my new donation partner? So it really is meant to provide both data to make better informed decisions, but also that actionable pipeline of starting to implement solutions. We also have tools that track the capital and the policy landscape in the United States, because those are two really key levers to driving the solutions forward. And what this does is it creates better accessibility to the data. Before we had the Insights engine, all of us were working off of PDF reports. Sometimes we had a slightly dynamic graph here or there, but we were working off PDF reports, and they really had two scales. One was really high-level national data, sometimes at the sector level, or you had this really zoomed-in data that was maybe an academic report on tomatoes in Florida. If you are working at any stage of the supply chain, that data at either of those sizes is almost completely irrelevant to you. You have to break out the adding machine, you have to crunch your own numbers, do your own graphs, you have to contextualize everything. There's still a whole research project associated with making that apply to you. So now with the Insights engine, it's by no means perfect, but it really helps people see themselves in the data and customize the graphs, play around with the little toggles on the screen, and actually see, what does this mean for me as a restaurateur in Georgia where I'm managing multiple SKUs or multiple food products? And what are the solutions that really correspond for me, and who can I go work with? So making that data more accessible and more actionable is what technology has helped us be able to do. And that's a really complex example. And in a more simple example, and I know you guys use Slack too, we just launched a Slack community for our Food Waste Action Network. Our Food Waste Action Network is a group of 1,000 community members. It's, again, a free community to join for anyone who's active or interested in food waste. Before we launched our Slack community, people could attend webinars, get newsletters, they could be manually connected by my colleague Lily Hurd, but we were basically a bottleneck to people getting connected. And now that we have this Slack community, people can connect, freely when they want to. They can share resources. They can share underutilized assets. They can highlight food that they need help moving, all sorts of things. And it again opens up accessibility to community resources. So there's really complex ways that we can use technology and really simple ways that we can use it.
I mean, wow. Okay. Right? Let's just give a round of applause. Yeah. I mean, the level. I mean, we're at South by Southwest. This is a place that is about tech. It is about innovation. But this room really cares about solving some of the major issues in food systems. And I'm so inspired of the level of detail and bringing people together. And thank you. Thank you for going so deep in. I was just sitting here oh my gosh. Mike, I mean, I don't know, 500 college students passionate about this sounds like a wild ride. How has it been? Tell me.
Oh no, it's a blast. And y'all can look at me and you can figure out that I'm a child of Big Ag. And Big Ag, we crunch big data. And we crunch a lot of data. And we love to get down in the dirt. And we say things like, we're going to understand something from the soil bed to the stomach and every step along the way. Okay, and then, of course, what we want to do and what we're addressing here is how to defeat hunger, how to improve this climate, right, and that sort of thing, and how we can do this collaboratively. Okay, so we have engaging conversations. So this is what we do at Farmlink. So Katy may publish, not to personalize it, but Refed may publish some information on waste. And it might be in the potato industry. And then we will take that data and we will dial it down. and we will actually get into the weeds of this waste. And then we'll say, well, where can we recover? Oh, by the way, there's only 782 potato farmers in Idaho. We can reach them, okay? And these passionate, hunger-fighting students can reach them. And we want to advocate to them. And we want to advocate months in advance because we're trying to solve the shelf life puzzle. We don't want to hand produce to our clients that is only going to last 3 days, right? We want them to enjoy some level of shelf life with that. And then we're crunching data to see how we can get this logistics system to flow like healthy, fresh water into the hands of the food insecure. And these young, passionate folks at Farmlink, they have fabulous visions and goals. And then the gritty guy like me kind of comes along and says, okay, these are the 782 potato farmers in Idaho. These are the 49 watermelon fellows in Texas. Let's go meet them. Let's talk about how we're going to rescue this produce and when we're going to rescue this produce and how we're going to get it out of here. So the agencies that are trying to distribute it, along the way, they can plan for it coming. And they can set up their distributions because we have to get this food into the hands of the food insecure. And we're not just knee-jerk reacting all the time. Now, the other thing in terms of data and the communication channels is we dive deep. If we said to the food banks are wonderful members of their community. They're fantastic. But we need to move produce through more channels than just food banks. We have got to get it quickly into a distribution state into the most food insecure areas at the lowest possible cost. And we use data. And I would not be the gentleman that my mother and grandmother would expect me to be if I did not thank Katy and Emily and Denise and other donors that have sponsored Farmlink along the way.
Can I just do a shout out to the Farmlink folks? Like, it wasn't like they called a few farmers. They called 400 before one of them picked up. Like, that is serious persistence. And I was supposed to call James and convince him to stay in school. By the end of a half-hour conversation, I told him to, like, quit school and go do the work. Like, that was how important it was.
That's a good mentoring conversation, right?
Right.
I love that you were put in charge of keeping him in school, and you're like, no, we need this guy in the world. So this conversation could have been just on data and technology and using our platforms. But it's not, and that's what's so exciting. It's actually about collaboration because we're each in our lane, and we're seeing the problem from one viewpoint. But as soon as we sit at a table together, it's so much easier to identify these blind spots, these gaps. And I think it's amazing that all three of these people on stage have collaborated. They've collaborated with Kroger. We're here talking about what do we need to do together. How do we enter into these partnerships, both with like all of our expertise, but also knowing that we don't know everything, and that's why we'll work better together. So I would love to talk about that with you guys. Process for good collaboration. Emily, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, can I just do another shout out since like it's all family here?
Yeah.
Sophia from Cargill, can you raise your hand? Back in the back. Okay, and then Michael Peter from Google Cloud and Reskewed. Please go check out their work. They just launched Reskewed in Austin, which is amazing, and this is a collaboration between Cargill, Cisco, and Google. Big deal. So well done, guys. That's collaboration right there. How about that? That's my example. I'm just taking advantage of the moment. With the Farmlink project and with Refed, I think collaboration, really starts with an understanding that I think maybe it was your panel this morning with the Travis County folks. Like, if you want to go far, go alone, no doubt. But if you want to go fast, you go alone, no doubt. Sorry, got that wrong. But if you want to go far, you have to go together.
Yes.
And so we choose as Google to work with Refed, Farmlink, Cargill, Cisco, and all these other companies because we know humbly that we're not that great at food. We're great at information, but we're not that great in food. So we have to lean into incredible experts who are really, really, really great at their fields to go far in the food system. I think for me, collaboration means that we show up with what we uniquely can provide. And then we are humble enough to realize that we are just one seat at the table. Like technology alone, I will be the first to say, technology alone does not solve the food system issues that we have.
Yes.
All right, so I will make a pitch for something that we are working on with Refed, with the Farmlink project, with a few others. Going back to the conversation with U.S. Hunger and Ezekiel Brooks saying no nonprofit should pay more money for their data and tech than a for-profit company. Like, we are trying to open source everything that we do and make data resources available to everyone so that data and tech is free, because we know how hard you're already working if you're running a nonprofit. So I'll give you one more example of when I think about collaboration. We gave a grant to Feeding America for $10 million because we know that they are on the front lines. There's somebody knocking at their door every day, sometimes in the millions, to get food. They don't have time to implement a new barcoding system in their back of house. They don't have time to improve their inventory system because there's somebody waiting there at the front door. So we specifically made grants to 32 food banks in the country who we knew were struggling with tech the most. And we know that somebody might be spending literally their entire time dealing with inventory because they don't have tech that could unlock that time for humans to become more humans, which is what Ezekiel Brooks said this morning. Yep. So kudos to you wherever you're at, U.S. Hunger. We can do a lot more.
So strong. Mike, I did a little bit of, I always do research on my panelists so I can, surprise them that I know about their childhood. No. So, Mike, I do think, though, that you worked at Feeding America, didn't you?
Yes.
Right? So you've been at the macro level of this work, and now you are working with students who are grassroots collaborators. Speak a little bit about collaboration from your lens.
Okay, so Feeding America is a wonderful organization, and they're great to me, and we collaborate with Feeding America and its member network all the time. And I should tell y'all that if I would have stayed at Feeding America, my 10 years with Feeding America and or a member in the network, it would have been 10 years on President's Day. But I left Feeding America to go to Farmlink last October. Okay, so I always wonder sometimes, how much time do we have and how much in the weeds do we really want to get? But okay,
get in the weeds.
Okay,
please.
what Emily is here is one huge change. Everybody's systems can be improved. There's no doubt about it. And what Google is doing for Feeding America is a blessing. Moving from the organized national mothership, if you will, to the independent world, there was a massive gap. And truly with produce, timing is everything. And we really do need to dive down and into the weeds. And we need to connect with these charities. And what Emily is doing is a blessing. And Emily and I were talking about this with her team last August in a facility down here. And they're explaining this platform to me, and I'm looking at it, and honestly, I didn't quite understand. But I got what they were saying. They were saying if somebody raises their hand and says, I have food to donate, can we get hunger-fighting charities to raise their hand and say, I'll take it? And I was listening through my Feeding America lens. And I thought, okay. And then I got into the other lens. And I wrote Emily a text 2 weeks later, and I said, Emily, I learned something every day. We need this technology out here so bad it's not even funny. And we just need it, and it needs to be on their smartphone or however it needs to be. So I hope I answered the question in that regard in terms of the contrast. Yes? Okay, but you look like we still want to get into the weeds a little bit more, right? Okay, so all right, so when we get donated produce, right, we hope that it'll last 5 to 7 days, right? And what Farmlink is very good at is diving down in these weeds and connecting into these agencies, but we're still doing that via telephone and email. And if there was some way that a charity in the middle of New Jersey would say, I could really use something on Friday, chances are we're probably going to find it. And not only that is, we would like to know how many they can take. So if somebody says, hey, I've got 2 pallets of this, and we're like, I'll tell you what, that 2 pallets will work with them. What Farmlink does is it will pay the distribution cost of that to get it to the small charities, so the small charities don't have to worry about finding the freight budget. And we'll say, here it comes on Thursday. And if the smaller hunger fighting charity knows that, then the whole system is more nimble. We know exactly where to go with it. They know it's coming. They can line up their volunteers. Their families will be there. Those that we serve will be there to pick it up. It will be that much more fresh. We can book the carrier ahead of time so the carrier can count on that load being picked up on. We can pick the right size carrier, right? And we can get that for them.
I mean, I think what's evident from this panel is the passion that each of them personally have. Again, in order to really innovate the world of food systems, we have to continue to push ourselves to think bigger. We have to continue to hold ourselves up to a standard of, am I stretching? Am I thinking about this? And Mike, you've really demonstrated that thoughtfulness for us, so thank you. Katy, I didn't forget, I want you to weigh in on this.
Sure. We collaborate in so many different ways, including with Google, including with Farmlink. And, one project that really stands out for me on collaboration is actually our Pacific Coast Food Waste Commitment. It's an initiative where you see collaboration kind of vertically throughout the supply chain, horizontally throughout the supply chain. And it's an initiative where ReFed is working with World Wildlife Fund, WRAP out of the UK, and Cascadia Policy Solutions. We're also partnering with a dozen or so cities, counties, and states on the West Coast. So you have kind of this public engagement. And then on top of that, we're working with a dozen or so food business signatories from retail, manufacturing, food service, and hospitality. And then add to that, we're working with a whole slew of different solution providers who actually helping those food businesses pilot and test out real, tangible solutions in their operations and then publish case studies so the rest of the world can understand how that actually worked for them, what operationally it was like to implement, what challenges they faced, what results they attained, how much did it cost, things like that. And these companies and these jurisdictions and us nonprofit partners, assisting just, to keep it going, it's a great example of both a public-private partnership, but also pre-competitive engagement. I think something that really stands out to us is when partners are willing to start to trust one another in ways that we haven't seen before, whether that's in pre-competitive engagements or if we come back to the insights engine, so many businesses have trusted us with their data. And it's that data, or even with their time to share insights or to poke holes in what we've done. We couldn't build the insights engine without the hundreds of folks that trust us to take their work and treat it with integrity and dignity. And so those types of collaborations and, especially in that kind of pre-competitive space, which I know is a scary word for some folks and hopefully less and less so nowadays, that really moves mountains in how we can move forward, because whether we're talking about food waste really specifically or sustainability more broadly, it doesn't stop at, any border, whether that's our kitchen, our company, our country. And no individual entity is going to solve it alone. Like it just,
oh my gosh,
it just will not.
Jump in. I have
So
many things.
I will make this very concrete. Google would not have its global food waste goals without ReFed. We leaned into the ReFed solutions provider database. We leaned into the ReFed data to build the case. It took us a year to build the case. But the 20 solution areas that we have were directly informed by ReFed's work. So thank you there. Thank you.
We're clapping.
Huge.
And I'll also give a nod to, Kroger has more ambitious food waste reduction goals than most corporates, and they are a beacon for others to set new goals. And it's every time a new, company, city, state, startup company puts out a goal like that, it inspires others to move forward.
Yes. So many big points. I just want to pull out a couple of them. I work on a lot of public-private partnerships, and a mistake I see made often is that we only think of the private sector or a brand as writing a check. And there's so much more there around resources and knowledge and making sure in all the partnerships that you're building, really diving into the information, the expertise. I always encourage people to talk to the marketing department. How can you actually reach their consumers? Like, have these really creative conversations and come to the table in a different way. And you'll be really surprised. As you heard, all three of them have benefited from this work they've done together. Another point I just want to make and emphasize that I've been hearing is industry-wide change and pre-competitive, right? So I've worked both with in the gender space and the food space around bringing competitors in the marketplace together to really work on the system. And Katy, thank you so much for making that point, because we're only going to win if we all win together. And actually, maybe before we move from that, Emily, this would be a question for you. Have you come to the table with someone that you've considered a competitor out in the marketplace? And has that something? And the other question I want to ask you, in case you don't want to answer that one, is internally, right? We actually have to build diverse teams inside of our organizations. So it's very important that we're not working in a silo as a foundation, that maybe we're pulling in the marketing department again, we're pulling in CFO, we're pulling in the executive team, HR. We have an ear to the different dynamic places that a company of that size is working. So would you speak a little bit to that then?
I can talk about both. The answer to the first one is yes, I have friends in other tech companies, but it starts with individuals. Sometimes if you're working for a corporation with 180,000 people, you got to take a risk. So I have friends at every other tech company that we can speak of, and we speak very openly and privately about our respective struggles within our own organizations, and the pre-competitiveness starts there. I'm not going to name them, but I have very open conversations with them, and we share as much as we can, just like Denise spoke about earlier on a panel that she will share with other grocers, because this is a pre-competitive issue. Why are we fighting about waste? Why are we fighting about hunger? Yep. So, again, thank you if you're watching. Those of us would be normally considered by the media to be competing, but actually are collaborating quietly behind the scenes. The second question is absolutely important. So Michael Peters is an example of it back there. We have many different groups across Google, from Google Cloud to YouTube to Android to our ads business, and on and on and on. So there's about probably 500 of us who all work in food in some way, whether we are working with, a large food company to help them with their ad strategy, or working with an agricultural company to help them literally transact 40% of all the grain transactions in the country. Come hear that talk on Monday if you want to hear. So there's a lot of us who just are not food people and have that background, and we have to build that learning network behind the scenes. So we have a little learning network behind the scenes, and we get together once a month to talk about the common issues that all of our partners face or our users face, so that we could solve more collaboratively internally. I'll leave you with one thing. I think what's really important, if you are in corporate America, everybody needs the story in a different way. So understanding your audience is absolutely critical. When I go to my CFO, it's all about the economics. So when I talk about why we're reducing food waste at Google, it's literally about saving money. When I talk about why we're working on hunger, it's literally about reputational risk and really, really showing that Google can show up differently in particular areas in the world. When I go to our sustainability team, it's all about how reducing food waste helps us with our carbon goals and water goals. And then when I go to our business folks, it's about how do we learn from our partners and also help them better, whether it's Cargill, Cisco, Compass Group, or all these other companies that we work with in tech. So think about the story we need to share when the person in front of you plays a particular role.
Even if you aren't at a huge company, this is very valuable insights, because you can approach conversations saying, hey, let me think about how I'm changing the way I'm telling the need, the story, the urgency, so that it resonates. And I don't think that anybody working in the nonprofit space or in food recovery should hesitate to really stretch, their own storytelling skills around, okay, this is the goal, and maybe it's not landing in the right way, and I can dive into this, and I can put myself in their shoes, and I can think about a different way to approach it. So it's a good lesson on not giving up. So we're getting towards the end of the panel. I really could talk to them forever. So I do want to open it up for you guys to be able to share if you have a call to action. But really, I do have one more question that I want to layer in with that, which is, I want to read it because it's so important to me. It's like we are really, again, talking about economics, public health, sustainable systems, and growing social needs. This means that we must take into consideration potential trade-offs with people on our planet and decisions that we're making every day with that hat. So maybe you could speak a little bit of that role. And yeah, let's start with Katy. And also, if you want to add in something for the audience to engage around, I would love that.
So thank you for this question. I actually disagree that there are major trade-offs. I think this is, reducing food waste is a win-win-win topic.
Woo!
Yes.
Woo! Yeah, just appreciate that. And I get in there, but I'll keep going.
Yeah.
There are economic benefits to it, whether it's within the operations of your business. There are startups that are succeeding. There are nonprofits that are succeeding. We've also seen some have, some setbacks, but that's normal in the course of business. That's not unique to the food waste space, so to speak. We can make incredible environmental strides working on this topic. We can address climate. We can address societal need. I know there are, outstanding ethical questions about, are we sending waste to hunger? But there's a lot we can be doing to preserve dignity and make sure that we're getting healthful food to our neighbors. And there's a lot of great ways that we can look at that. There's definitely still really interesting research ongoing about rebound effects of reducing food waste. So there's so much more we have to learn, but this is a win-win-win-win-win-win situation to work on food waste, and it's such an honor to be a part of this project with all of y'all.
Go for it.
Okay, so we'll start with the law of big numbers again. All right, this country, we have over 100 billion pounds of produce waste every year. It's a travesty. We just need 6 billion pounds of that on an annual basis, and that's what we need to defeat hunger. That's 600 truckloads a day. Now, I know we've talked about a couple of pallets, but in my short time at Farmlink, I've seen this young, energetic group move 30 to 50 loads a day into all sorts of food banks, Feeding America's and otherwise. Katy is exactly right. There is a win. There is a win everywhere. There's long-term health cost reduction. There's the climate. There's all sorts of things. There's dignity. There's better education. There is any number of things. So and I'm looking at the clock. So this is kind of what I would say. If you're a student, get involved. Create a pantry. Call a farmer. Get something. Okay, the numbers can be quite small. We are very thankful for the 5,000 entities that we have that are donating their excess produce, and we're getting 1 billion pounds a year from that. Fantastic. If we just rescued the produce in the top 12 agricultural states in this country that went unharvested, there's 1 billion pounds right there. And that would be the freshest, lowest cost stuff we could get. And we still haven't addressed the 100 billion pounds that's going to waste, right? And so for the folks that are in the food pipeline, I would say if you're a grower, rancher, shipper, packer, distributor, wholesaler, importer, and actually we have now had a few retailers reach out to us recently at Farmlink because they know we work like they work. We work 24/7. We will say thank you to you and bless you, and we will pick it up and get it moving. And then if you're a donor, yes, the charities, bless our hearts, we just simply need money, okay? And so, but if you can donate, it doesn't go to salaries, it can go to trucks to get food into these smaller pantries in these significant food insecure areas.
But also, it's okay if it goes to salaries, because I would like to pay for Mike to be doing more of this work.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So, woo!
Totally support that.
Yeah,
Totally
we
support
need
that,
more
too.
operating donations that are just open for these companies organizations to be doing the best work that they can. Emily, I would like you to answer the question. You're not.
I'll be really brief since they've spoke so well. 2 things, share and believe. Number 1, remember that if you give it away for free, I know you work for potentially nonprofits and for-profits where it's really hard because you're trying to protect the IP, trying to make money. I promise you, if you give it away for free, whether it's information, whether it's data, whether it's software, you're going to get farther together. I promise. And Denise and I and these two and a number of individuals are working on making things available for free. Check out what open source means. It's how the internet was built, and we still believe that. The second thing is, James Canoff, if you're listening, I'm going to say what you say, which is we have to believe that it's possible to solve hunger in our lifetimes. As a humanity, as a species, we have solved other problems in our lifetimes. And if we stop believing that it's possible to solve hunger, it will not go away. So, James, I'm with you. I believe it's possible to solve hunger in our lifetimes. Thank you.
I mean, this panel, please give it a round of applause. I have had so much fun with you guys. Oh, we could keep talking forever. So that's it. Please meet them. Come up and say hi and build a partnership. That would be my dream come true.